Hey everyone, it's your Lady Vintage Bags here, your vintage designer handbag obsessed Aussie. And you guys know I've been pining over the Hermes Kelly size 25, particularly in Cellier, for a long time now. But that bag is going to cost me over $20,000. That is not the type of money I have. So instead, today I'm going to show you how you can turn this DIY kit that was kindly sent to me by Babylon Leather and turn these pieces of leather into your very own hand-sewn DIY Kelly bag. And these are being sold for about $130 on their website, which is much more affordable than a $20,000 Hermes bag. As much as I want it, that's just not realistic for me. Now, this project took me about 11 hours to do, and I'm going to take you on this journey or this experience with me. And you may even notice I've got this teeny tiny Pinkerton bag charm hanging off, which I actually use to keep my doggy bags. And that was also a DIY project that they kindly sent to me. And if you want to see the video of that, I'm going to leave it linked here so you can follow along with me hand sewing this as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you each step one by one. I'll explain to you the mistakes that I made during this project and ways that I fixed them, like what contingency plans I had in place, and also what preventative measures I had in place to stop myself making the same mistake again. And just before we start, I'm going to give you some helpful tips you really need to know before you start touching your needle and thread. So tip number one, make sure you watch the provided tutorial video very carefully. They give you the tutorial video on a QR code inside your kit, or you can just also go directly to the YouTube page and find the corresponding tutorial video for your DIY kit. Make sure you watch it once or twice completely from the beginning, and then re-watch each section bit by bit as you go. Even slow it down to like 0.75 or 0.5 speed so you can read all the captions and see all the steps carefully, because sometimes at normal speed it seems a bit fast and you miss some of the points in the tutorials. So make sure you watch it, re-watch it, slow it down, and don't miss any of the instructions. Tip 2, make sure you pull each stitch tight every single time. Each time your needle goes through a hole, pull that stitch tight, even if it means you have to pull it twice just to make sure. Having really tight stitches is really important, not just for the function of holding the bag together, but also just the aesthetic as well. Loose stitches just don't look very good and also are not going to do their job in holding the pieces of the bag together. Tip 3, if you're not used to threading a needle, no fear. Just take your time with it and watch external tutorial videos about how to thread a needle if you need to. And one thing that I find that is really helpful for me is sometimes when you find the edge of the string or the thread is too frayed and it cannot go through the eye of the needle, I like to cut a fresh sharp edge and sometimes even wet it and twist the top a little bit just to prevent it from fraying when it's trying to go through the eye of the needle. But just take your time with it. If you feel frustrated, just put it down and try again. Next tip, when you're going to lock the needle in place along the thread and you're piecing it back through the thread to lock it in, give yourself about an inch away from the end of the thread. That way you don't accidentally rip the needle off as you're applying force during the pulling and the pushing process of sewing. Because that's happened to me. I got too close to the end and the needle just came off. Now this tip is very, very, very important. If you're working with 2 or more pieces of leather, anchor them in place, whether you use the ball clips provided or the leather positioning tools. Guys, the leather positioning tools are provided free in the kit. However, they are not included during the tutorial video, so sometimes you tend to forget what they are, or it's not even clear what they are. So these leather positioning tools are really good, and I didn't even understand or figure out what they were until I was nearly at the end of the project. So you will see me using anchors in the way of the bull clip or using the spare needles to anchor pieces in place. But by the time I got to the end of the project, I realized what these positioning tools were. And watch a tutorial video about how to open and close them. I'll link one down below. But once you figure out how to use it, they are very handy in holding pieces of leather together so you can sew them in place. Otherwise, if you're just trying to freehand everything, things can move and shift out of place very easily. It'll just make your life so much better to anchor things in place, which is a very normal sewing thing to do, is to pin things in place. When you're working with 2 layers or more of leather, and if you find you're having trouble piercing the needles through both layers at once, don't feel the need that you must pierce the needle through both layers at the same time. You can go through each layer one by one to make it more manageable. Make sure you take regular breaks. Not only do you need to rest your eyes, but also your neck, your back, stretch your legs. It's not really good to be sitting for prolonged periods of time hunched over sewing, so do make sure you take regular breaks. Now, if you make a wrong stitch, maybe 1 or 2 stitches at most, and you catch it straight away, you still have the chance to salvage it. You can reverse out of these stitches. All you have to do is turn the needle around and re-pierce it back through that wrong hole that you just stitched through, and then again the next wrong hole if you did a second wrong stitch. But it is possible to salvage 1 or 2 incorrect stitches if you catch it straight away. Now, really important, take your time with this project. Make it a fun and cathartic thing. Don't rush yourself. Don't feel like you have any time pressure when doing it. Because if you try to rush, you will most likely make mistakes. Particularly if you're doing something for the first time, it's inevitable to make a mistake. And trying to rush yourself or pressure yourself time-wise is just going to increase the chances of a mistake. And finally, if you do make a mistake, don't panic. Just have a deep breath and just accept the mistake. And you have 1 or 2 choices. Choice number 1 is cut the thread and undo it all and start again, or alternatively have a contingency plan. So maybe you'll carry on with that mistake until a certain point and then re-stitch over it. I will show you mistakes that I've made in my video and the contingency plan I put into place. But don't panic. If you make a mistake, the worst that can happen is you have to just undo that whole section and just do it again. Okay, so here is the unboxing of the kit so you can see exactly everything that I got. So in this kit, you get all the individual pieces. All the pieces already have pre-punched holes, so everything lines up and it's very beginner friendly. They give you everything from the needles to the thread to the clamps like the positioning tools or the ball clips. I even got 3 different twillies and a rodeo type horsey. I'm not really into rodeo, so I'm not going to be using it. You do get a strap that's already made and assembled for you, so you don't need to sew the strap. The only thing you really need to bring is some sort of flame source. So whether you want to use a lighter or a matchstick, it's just for burning back the thread after you cut it. So step 1 is we're going to sew decorative stitches around all these holes on these side parts. So that's 4, 8, and on the body of the bag, that's another 2, so that's 10. And that's another 2, so 12. So decorative stitches on 12 holes. So in the tutorial, they explain to you the exact method as to how to do the stitches and how to do a back stitch and how to cut it and burn it. So I'm not going to go through those exact instructions with you because I've got it in the tutorial. I'm just going to show you the process of me doing it. Okay, so I just did my back stitching. Now I'm going to cut it and burn it. And the instructions say to leave like a 3mm length so that you can burn that back. Okay, so this is what it looks like now with the decorative stitches. And the thread that I was given was called the tonal thread, so it's the same color as the bag. That's what I chose. And so now we're just going to repeat this for all the other 11 holes. Okay, so far I've finished one side and I've done the decorative stitches on the 4 holes you can see there. And then this is what the back side looks like. So you can see where I have cut and back burnt my stitches on all 4. So it's taken me roughly 20 minutes to do these 4 holes. So that averages out to be about 5 minutes per hole that I've spent. Okay, so I've now done all 12 holes. So 4, 8, 10, 12, and it took me about 10 minutes longer than I expected. So I was expecting 1 hour for the 12 holes or 5 minutes each. It took me about 1 hour and 10, maybe that's like 6, 7 minutes each. So one thing I noticed was in the tutorial, it said for each hole, measure the length of thread that's 3 times the length of this. I found 2 times the length to be sufficient. So after I realized I didn't need that much length, I started using 2.5, and I went, oh, that's still a bit too much. And then I went down to 2 lengths of this of thread only. So what I really like about the Babylon kits, and both the Kelly and the Pickerton that I made, is that it is beginner friendly. Like, I've never sewed a bag in my life before, but it was achievable, and I really felt like, you know, I'd unlocked a new skill. Now, they do use real leather on their pieces. So some of the kits is top grain leather, some of the kits is full grain leather. And I think what makes it so easy and beginner friendly is that everything already has pre-punched holes. So your stitches are going to look really nice and straight, and you don't really need to think too hard about how to line the pieces up because you can match the holes up. And make sure you watch the tutorial videos that they have provided. There's tutorial videos on everything, and the QR code is inside the kit, but you can also go straight to their YouTube channel. So guys, Babylon Leather have kindly given me a 10% off promo code, which is LadyVintageBags. I'll put the link in the description box, and I'll flash up the promo code on the screen as well. So let me know if you end up giving it a go. So step 2, we're going to sew the pocket. So it's currently 1 flat piece of soft leather, and we are going to fold it and sew it down like that. Don't forget to watch the tutorial. I had to watch this section about 3-4 times at a slower speed before starting. And remember, if you're confused as to which side is the outside and which side is the inside, the outside facing part would be the side with the bigger holes, and the interior facing part would be the side with the smaller holes. So according to the instructions, when you reach the 5th hole down, they want you to fold it over. And I'm going to clamp it as well. When you're working with 2 layers or more of leather, and if you find you're having trouble piercing the needle through both layers at once, don't feel the need that you must pierce the needle through both layers at the same time. You can go through each layer one by one to make it more manageable. So for example, I'm having trouble getting it through both layers at once now. So I could just go through 1 layer, and then the 2nd layer. Okay, I've decided to go rogue here with my back stitching and cutting. So I've done my back stitches, and normally you would cut the thread where the back stitch is and then burn it off. But I just want to see if I can make it even more invisible. So I actually put the needle through where this edge is, and I'm going to try cutting it there and back burning it. I don't know, that could be a complete disaster, I'm not sure. Okay, so my rogue method, my back burnt thread is now inside this fold. So you can't see it from either side now. That could be a good thing, that could be a mistake. I don't know, I might regret it later. I'm not exactly sure, but that was just me experimenting. So in the tutorial, the next part is to now stitch down here and here all in one go. Okay, so the pocket is now finished. I again went rogue with where I finished my back stitch. So I finished the back stitch there, but I decided to try to hide or conceal the part where I cut it and burn it back inside the edge. So you can see there. And then I can just tuck those into the edge there. So it's now not visible from the back or the front of the pocket where I burnt it back. So that was just my own little rogue experiment. I'm not instructing you or telling you to do that. I was just showing you my own little experiment. So for this part, we're going to be sewing this like extra base reinforcement to what will be the bottom of the bag. So don't forget there's an inside and an outside, and you can tell because the outside has bigger, more uniform holes, whereas the holes are less uniform and smaller on the inside. And this base reinforcement, you can see there's two sides, so this side and then this side with this sort of backing. So you want to be having these two matching colors on top of each other when you're sewing it down. That's actually the inside of the bag, and this is the inside of the bag. You can see there's a slight color mismatch, so you know that this is not the correct way, but rather like this, where the color matches exactly. And there's 4 pinholes here, 4 pinholes here, and these pinholes actually line up. And I do find using the clamp to be very helpful. Okay, so I've just finished this one side, and that took me about 20 minutes. So I'm guessing it's going to take me another 20 minutes to do the other side, 40 minutes altogether. And don't forget, when you're sewing 2 pieces of leather together, if you feel as though I can't get the needle through both of the pieces simultaneously, just put it through 1 piece of leather at a time. You don't have to go through both if it's not going through smoothly. It'll make it easier for you instead of struggling. Just go through 1 at a time. So I've just done my back stitch. So now I'm going to cut it and burn it back. So in the tutorial it said the piece of string I needed to measure was about 6 times the length of this piece, but look how much leftover I have. So I think I'm going to try just 4 times the length for the next one, because I literally have 2 times the length left over. Okay, let's do some burning back. Okay, there's my little there. So I'm up to the last few stitches now, and I would say 4 times the length is definitely more appropriate than 6. I don't have like huge amounts left over anymore. So I don't know if I just misread the instructions or where I got 6 from. But 4 times the length seems to be their default go-to instructions, and it seems to work as a formula for measuring how much length you need. So now it's just time to do some back stitches. So as you can see, I do prefer this to be vertical when I'm doing a big piece like this. You don't have to do this whole project in one day. I'm just doing it bit by bit, an hour to 2 hours each day after work. So if I have, like for example today, I've got a lot on my mind. This is just helping me get some stuff off my mind. Having the clips is very helpful. So don't forget to use your clips. Now I'm just doing that rogue thing that I do where I like to just loop it over the stitch before I cut it and burn it back. This is just a me thing. So I usually just do like 3 loops under the existing stitches. This is not in their instructions. This is not part of the official instructions. This is just me going rogue. And I'm not suggesting you should do the same thing. I'm just showing you what I actually do. Okay, so that's both sides of this base now stitched down and reinforced. Oh, I got a little bit of flame stain there. Don't do what I did, bit of flame stain. So that actually took me 50 minutes to do these two. So the next part is making the key bell. So you get this long piece of leather. You get the piece that's going to be the bell, and you get the key and lock. And in this case, we're just going to be using the key only for this part. So according to the tutorial, on this long part, there's this bit with a hole and this bit that only has holes for sewing, and it's not actually split, whereas this end is split. So the part that is not split is the part which the key will go through, and you fold it over. And there's two sets of stitching holes, so you're just going to go 1, 2. I'm in two minds about having this actually sewn in because that makes it permanent. I was thinking, should I not sew it in and find like a small keyring? But then I have to buy another small keyring. So I'm just going to sew it in there first as per the tutorial. If I don't like it, I can take it out later. Additionally, in this part of the tutorial, they didn't clearly explain how long the length of thread should be. And I saw in the comment section, someone did ask and they said, please default to the standard 4 times the length of the piece. And that should be enough for you to do any section. So that's what I'm going to do here. So that's going to be the outside. And that's the inside. So make sure you have the correct way folded outwards. So the long piece has a wider end and a thinner end. So it's the thinner end that goes through the key bell like that. You always want to have the length of each string or each thread roughly equal at the beginning point. So this one I'm sort of thinking with the key bell, both the back and the front are going to be potentially visible. So I don't really want to have my back stitch and back burn end sticking out of either side. So I'm sort of thinking, how do I want to go about this? So two potential ideas is I tuck the back stitch into this edge, but that's going to make it really hard to burn it back because I tried that already with this pocket piece. And you can see it's here and here where I tried to hide it in there, but it's still peeking through. And then on that end, it's here and here. So that was actually really hard to do. So I'm thinking, okay, so if I do one back stitch this way, and I do one back stitch this way, pull those tight. Okay, so now I'm stuck out here, which is one stitch back. So what do I want to do? I'm going to go forward again, one stitch, forward again, one stitch, pull that tight. Okay, so I'm back on the edge again now. Okay, so I'm going rogue again here. This is not part of the instructions. This is not the official instructions. I'm just doing my own thing, going rogue with my creativity. Okay, I'm going to actually now go around. I know that's not something that the real bags would ever have, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to go around one, like that. And then I'm only going to come out, and then I'm going to come out through the middle. So I'm going to attempt to hide the the cutting off and the burning back in the middle there. This could completely backfire, I'm not sure. So now I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side. So I'm going to get the needle and go around. But I'm not going the whole way through, I'm going to come out in the middle. Okay, so you see where I'm there? Pull that tight. Okay, let's attempt to cut that and back burn it now. Could be a complete fail, I'm not sure. Okay, I've cut it now. Okay, so I've burnt that back. And now that's just hiding in the middle. So hopefully that works on the other side, because I won't be able to pry it open like this on the other side. Okay, so I'm now nearly finished the other side. I'm coming up to the last stitch where I'm going to have to back stitch and then going to try and forward stitch and do my row going around again. So we'll see if it works or fails this time. Okay, moment of truth. Time to cut and back burn. This is going to be hard because I can't pry it open like I did earlier. Okay. Ooh, I want to burn it back a little bit more. A little bit more. I don't know, but it's right on the edge there now. Okay, no, I think that's as far as I can back burn it. Okay, so that's now what it looks like. One side and the other side. So now you can't see any burnt back thread there on either side because I have hidden it inside there. Seems to be holding up fine in terms of like functionality. Okay, now I just got to stitch this little part here. Again, I'm in two minds about sewing this directly into a loop because then it's permanent, but I also can't be bothered trying to find a really teeny tiny key ring. So I am going to sew it in, even though I'm 100% sure that's what I want to do. But I can always just undo it later. It's an easy fix. So this is just one stitch literally. This is some thick pieces of leather, so I'm going to have to put it through the holes one at a time. Actually, I might start with the inner hole. That might be easier. Okay, that's the inner hole. Again, where am I going to hide the burnt back parts? I kind of don't want it showing there, but also don't want it showing here. Okay, so I'm going to try and hide it inside again. So I'm going to go rogue. So I'm going to get this needle and I'm going to put it back through, but only putting it back through one piece of the leather, not the two, and I'm going to try and back burn it from the inside again. So here it's going to now poke out. So as you can see there, I now have the needle coming out from the middle. Okay, this could backfire on me because I'm going rogue. I'm not saying you should do this, I'm not recommending you do this, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. Okay, I'm just going to cut one first and then try to burn that back and see if that's a failure or not. So you can see how much thread I've got there to burn. Okay. I've just got it there. Okay, so it's kind of hidden there. Okay, that was okay. Now I'm going to try this side. Okay, so now that's hidden in there. So I got one on that side and then one on this side. So now it's not showing there or there. So that's the key bell pretty much done. When you want to loop it around the strap of the bag, all you have to do is just pull that so that the key's hidden in there. You can loop it around whatever you want to loop it through, and you can put the whole key bell through this slice, and then that's how you hang it off whatever it is. So the next part is to sew the sangles onto the bag. So like that, and like that. So don't forget, if you're confused as to which side is which, one side has nice big uniform holes and the other side it looks less uniform and smaller. So the side with the bigger nice uniform holes should always be the side facing outwards. So if you're ever confused, look at the holes. So when I looked at the instructions, it seems as though most of the stitching on this sangle is going to be decorative stitching, and we're only sewing from here to here. So there's no stitches around where the hardware is going to be. It just stops there. And additionally, the only part where we're going to be sewing through two pieces of leather is just this small part here, which you can see these holes match up with these holes. And to make things easier for you, it's not overly clear on the camera, but it's clear in person. This hole and this hole are actually a little bit bigger than the rest, and they're like marker holes. So it tells you, so if you line up the pointy bit with the pointy bit, or the hole that belongs to the pointy bit on both of them, when you line them up, you can see that where these two big holes are on the sangles will be the last two holes, will match up with the last two holes on the body too. So it helps you to align everything. So this time they're telling us to measure 8 times the length of the sewn part. Usually it's like 4. So I'm going to be needing a lot more thread this time. So I'm going to start doing my decorative stitches until I get to the marker hole, and then I'm going to clamp everything down. And I'm also going to start my decorative stitches from that hole too. So I'm going to start here, go around, across, and then back up. And then we're going to finish off with these final stitches, which will attach it to the bag. Okay, so I've nearly finished my decorative stitches all the way around. So I started here from that marker stitch, went down, up, back across, and I'm nearly back at the second marker stitch. So time to put everything in place. Okay, so that's what my anchor has looked like so far. Pointy end, 1 marker hole, 2 marker hole. Okay, so that's all stitched down now. So I just got to do a back stitch and finish it off. I'm just thinking about where I want to hide the burnt part. Okay, so now that part is finished. I couldn't think of a place to hide the thread, so I'm just going to backbone it here. Okay, so that part's finished. So that's what it looks like there. One thing I noticed was I didn't pay enough attention to where I started and stopped my stitch. So for this side, I stop my stitch down there, and then for this side I stop my stitch up there. So then I must have started in opposite directions as well, and that's how I came to that. So that might be something that could trigger some people's OCD, where they'll be like, oh no, one's up here, one's down there. If that really bothers you, make sure you pay attention to where you're starting and stopping, because I ended up on opposite sides. So this is day 3, and the next step I'm doing is decorative stitches around what will be the top handle. Now, it wasn't very clear in the tutorial video where to start your stitch, so I'm going to start it here, in the middle of this small edge. Okay, so I just did my back stitch, so now I've decided that I want it to be cut and burnt off here, right on this edge, like sort of in the middle. I was thinking, where along do I want it done, but I just decided on here. So let's go ahead and do that. So this part has taken me 25 minutes to sew the decorative stitches all around the top handle there. So that was actually a bit longer than I was anticipating. Okay, so now we're actually going to attach the top handle to the top of the bag. So the top of the bag, where the flap is, has these pre-punched holes, and they pair up or match up with these little leather tabs that have been provided. And according to the tutorial, the leather tabs will go through the hardware. So this is like a double pronged hardware. One prong for the top handle, the other prong the strap will attach to. And you need to slide your leather tab through like so. Pull it through. Might take a bit of force. And the idea is this will fold over. There are matching holes on this side that will match up with this side. And additionally, the holes then now match up with the holes there. Now that's a lot of matching up that needs to be done. So first I'm going to anchor everything with my spare needles. Okay, so I've got some pins holding it in place again. So you gotta be careful so I don't stab myself during the sewing process. I'm gonna try and stitch this back line first, because that's got the most layers of leather I need to go through, which is 3 layers. So just go through one layer at a time. That's gonna be impossible to try to hit all 3. Just take it slow. Pull that really tight because it's just so much leather. Okay, so far I've only done one line of stitch on this side, and I want to say that I found that more difficult than the first side, because now that the top handle is sewn on and bent, it made it a lot harder to keep this side down, because now I'm fighting with the tension of the top handle. So I did find the second side already to be harder to maneuver than the first side, and I'm trying to flip things different angles and directions. So don't be surprised if you also find the second the second side to be harder. Okay, so I just completed the second half of the top handle. So there's my top handle. Let's cut it and burn it back. So it was about an hour all up. My thumbs hurt. So I'm just doing this 1 or 2 hours a day. Oh, I actually got the back burning on the same side this time because I've been a bit random. See, like this is on opposite ends. Oh, these holes actually line up. So I've been a bit random with which direction I'm kind of going in. So if you're really OCD about that, you may want to really pay attention to which direction you're sewing in, because some people may not be able to handle that. I've got one back burn here, one back burn up there. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. So I don't know, to me, I haven't got this super straight. It's got a little bit of a skewed direction to it, but the whole bag's not put together yet. Tell me what you think. Does that look skewed to you? Or is it just me? We'll see what happens when the bag's finally done, but I may not have done the best job there. Next, we're going to sew the turnlock onto the body of the bag. So the turnlock is rectangular, and you've got the matching holes which are also rectangular. So you line it up. Now the tutorial says to start at the top corner. So I'm just going to use my pins to anchor this down. Okay, so this is now sewn on. So this square took about 15 minutes. I still have quite a bit of leftover thread. So initially it said to measure 5 times this length. I think 4 would have been sufficient because look how much thread I have left. It's pretty much nearly 2 times that length. So I can understand if maybe you want to do 4 and have a bit left over. It's always good to have more thread than not enough, but this is a lot of leftover thread. Okay, so this wasn't too bad, 15 minutes. I've done my back stitch, time to cut it and burn it back. There's a plastic protective cover on. I'll do the unpeeling of the plastic at the end. Okay, so we're up to sewing the sides of the bag on. Now, one major thing I just finally realized is these free leather positioning tools. They actually provided these anchor-like tools. So all this time I've been using the spare needles as anchors. It wasn't necessary. They already provided leather anchor tools. So that's what I'm going to be using for this part. So I recommend you watch the tutorial very carefully. I watched it like 5 times because it seemed like it went really fast and I felt like I was missing a lot of bits. So I had to watch it about 5 times, and then the last 3 times I watched it on half speed because I felt like the information was being fed very quickly. Don't forget, if you're confused as to which side is the outside and which side is the inside, there is slightly 2 different colors. So the outside of the bag on this panel will match the color on the outside, and same with the inside part will match with the inside. So you can see there is a slight color difference between the outside and the inside, so just match up the colors. And the part with the holes matches up with the part with the holes on the body. That's where the sangles are going to be going through. Now, one interesting thing is they want to start the first stitch by actually going around the outside. So far this has been the only time where we do a stitch on the outside. So I think I'm going to try and just hold this one up vertically. Pull that stitch tight. If anyone knows why we want to do a stitch out there, let me know, because we haven't done it so far anywhere else on the project. Let me know, is it because Hermes does it that way? Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of this panel now where I'm going to have to now bend and attach the bottom. Number one, was pretty happy with how these anchors were working. Number two, I realized I made a big mistake and measured the wrong length of thread. It was supposed to be 4 times the length of this entire area up to about here, but I only measured the 4 times this area, so I missed this whole area. So now my length of thread is not going to be long enough. So I have to accept my mistake, and I have 2 choices. Either cut it and undo it all, start again, or come up with a contingency plan. So I've decided I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to run a contingency plan, which is literally I'm just going to cut it and backburn it wherever I start to run out and just start with a new thread. That's it. And I'll just live with 2 pieces of thread. I can live with that. Okay, so this is where my mistake has come to rear its ugly head. So I still have nearly this whole side that needs to be stitched. I've just got my anchor things holding everything together there, and I'm pretty much nearly out of thread. So I already realized my mistake that I didn't measure enough thread, and now it's come to rear its ugly head. So luckily I started on the front, so I'm just going to have like a random back stitch or 2 here, and I'm just going to have to burn it back in there and then get a new piece of thread. So I'm going to do my back stitch now. Now I'm going to hide my back burning inside the bag, but I'm going to pull the needle inside the bag, not through the holes. Okay, here we are on the inside. So you see I've peeked through my needles. Okay, I just ended up burning the inside of the bag. So that wasn't great. Luckily it's the inside, not the outside. With the lighter. So be careful about that. You can see they're all black there. Okay, so despite me not being able to successfully backburn that thread properly, I'm going to chance it. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get my new thread, and I'm just going to stitch from a few stitches down. So I need to re-anchor everything. Okay, so I have this clamped down here, and I'm sewing from here upwards. And I like to do this part vertically, so I'm going to use my knee against the table to hold the leather up vertically. So I have already sewn up to here, but because I ran out of thread and I didn't backburn it properly because I made the thread too short to backburn, I'm actually going to re-stitch all the way from the bottom corner back up, so that way I'm doubling up over that, and if it loosens, it acts as a reinforcement. So this is my contingency plan for my mistake of measuring too short of thread and running out. Okay, so I finally made it back over the area that I needed to reinforce. So I started from this corner and have finally come back up. So you will notice this part, the stitching seems really thick because there's multiple layers of stitching there. So now I can finally continue back up to the area I have not yet stitched. But at least the area where I was not able to backburn properly, I have reinforced several centimeters of stitching there. So hopefully that does not become a problem. But I can always fix it in the future if need be. And I must say, if you are going to be restitching over areas, it gets more and more difficult to do because you've already filled the hole with thread and now you're trying to go through a filled hole. Oh, okay. So here's an example of how to reverse out of a stitch. So I just made a mistake there. See, I've gone around the whole edge, which I wasn't supposed to do. So I'm just going to take the needle out, literally go back through the mistake hole that I went through. And there, it's done. So that's how you reverse out of one stitch. Now I'm going to go back properly and pull it tight every time, every stitch. So in the tutorial, they want you to stitch all the way up until there's only 1 or 2 holes left. And they actually want you to stop there, not go all the way to the top, and then cut the string, leave some hanging off just out here like this, and then going to do the other side and repeat it. And in the tutorial, they proceed to say after attaching the other side in the same way, leaving 1 or 2 holes length at the end, they then want you to now do decorative stitches all along the flap. And they want you to start at the 1 to 2 holes you've missed. So you're kind of stitching over that. So here's my 1 to 2 holes. I'll do my decorative stitches from here all the way around and then come back. And bear in mind, in the instructions, you've got these bits hanging out the side. And then after all that, they want you to then tuck these into the inside and then cut it and burn it off. But I'm thinking I don't need to wait. I'm just going to put it inside and cut it off and burn it off now. So I'm going to go rogue. I'm deviating from the instructions. So I'm just going to do a back stitch. So this is not in the instructions, so don't follow what I'm doing. I'm just going rogue. This is just my own thought process. Okay, so I've done my 2 back stitches. I've pulled it tight. Now I'm going to do what looks like a 3rd back stitch, but the needle is actually going to come out through here. So you can see the needle coming out through there. I'll pull that tight. Repeat that with the other needle. So it looks like I'm doing a 3rd back stitch. But the needle is actually just coming out through the middle part. I'm going to try a match instead of a lighter this time and see if I can control the flame better. I put these giant matchsticks. That may or may not have been a mistake. I don't know. So I'm just going to let that get a bit smaller. So I burnt the inside of the bag last time. Now there is a bit of wind, so this may or may not work. Oh, it's a bit too long. The back burnt part was a bit too long this time. Okay, I just cut some of the back burnt part off. Should I try again? Let's try again. Try to get that little bit. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm just going rogue. Probably shouldn't have gotten matchsticks that were this big. The match went out. Didn't do anything. Maybe it's the wind. Okay, I'm going to stop there and not try anymore. Okay, so I've still got my anchor there for that top hole because it said to stop 1 to 2 holes before. So now we're going to repeat the other side. Okay, so I've now finished going around all here. And I've got 1 to 2 pinholes left, just like the instructions said. So I'm going to go rogue again, like what I did with the other side. And I'm going to do something that's different from the tutorial. So I'm going to do a couple of back stitches. Pull everything tight every time. Now this is definitely going to be hard to burn back because now the bag is enclosed. I'm going to cut. Should I use the match or the lighter? What do you think? I think I'm going to try the lighter. I'm probably not going to be able to get this on camera. That's not burnt back enough. Okay, I'm going to try the match now. Okay, I kind of burnt the inside of the bag a little bit again. Not doing a very good job there. There's like black marks on the inside of the bag now. So now the tutorial says to do a decorative stitch along the flap of the bag, and the decorative stitch will start down here where the end of this side panel stitch finished, and I'm probably going to overlap 1 or 2 stitches, go around and come back on this side and overlap 1 or 2 stitches here. And the length of thread is supposed to be 4 times that length. Now I've decided, this is just me going rogue again, I've decided that this one stitch here, where the side of the bag ends and it's just the flap only, I'm going to stitch that twice just to make that really tight. So I'm going to essentially do a back stitch on that and then go forward again. That's just my little rogue idea. Because that area of the bag will be taking a lot of pressure and tension all the time with the constant opening and closing. Okay, now I'm going forward again. So that was about 45 minutes to stitch from the back here, do decorative stitches all around the front of the flap, and then go back. Okay, so the next part is now attaching or sewing in this pocket that we sewed earlier, and it will be attached to the bag along the front of the body of the bag. And to attach it, we'll be doing decorative stitches along the top rim of the bag, which starts all the way from back here. We'll go around the side, around the front. It will attach the pocket, go around the front, back around the side, and attach to the back again. And in the tutorial, it said this pocket starts from 6 holes in. So I'm actually going to pre-anchor it before I start. And that hole looks slightly bigger than the others. So let me just check that it lines up on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, and they've marked those holes. That's the 6 hole on each side, a tiny bit bigger than the others, and they use those as marking holes. So it's a bit more obvious for you to see where it's supposed to connect. So they've helped you out in that way. So I've got an anchor on each one, but because those anchors are going to have to come off as soon as I start stitching there, I'm going to put extra anchors on. Okay, so essentially the inside and the length of string is 4 times the length of these 3 sides. You know, I've decided to go rogue again. So initially I was going to start from these 2 holes here. So you can see where the pin are. I was going to start there. But then I thought, no, I really want to reinforce these 2 edges together the same way the instructions asked us to reinforce it there with this thread. So I've decided I'm going to repeat the same thing, and I'm going to go through this hole. So this is just me going rogue. This wasn't in the instructions, it's just me doing my own thing. Let me check that my thread is equal. Oh, it's equal enough. Okay, and I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to reinforce that with another duplicate stitch. Now I can start going along the rim. Now to be able to provide my needles going through opposite directions now, because at the moment they're facing the same direction, which is not what we want. We want them to be going in opposite directions. I need to utilize the same hole again, but I need to just go through one layer and have it coming out into the bag. And then you can come out of the hole next to it, pull everything tight. Okay, now we're back on track to having my needles going in the opposite directions, because for a second there they were going in the same direction. So again, that was just me going rogue. That's not part of the instructions to start there and do that. Okay, so I've now stitched around the whole side and a little bit up the front, and I'm now at the 6th hole where it's going to connect with the pocket. So I'm going to take out my first anchor because that's right at the first hole. Okay, time to pierce where the pocket is. So I'm just going to go through one piece of leather at a time. Pull tight. I've decided I want to use my ball clip. I'm a really big fan of anchoring things. Okay, I've made it all the way around now. So I'm just going to do one final stitch, which is going to be a duplicate of how I started the stitch. So you may remember at the beginning I started it like this, where I just went rogue and did this around stitch to reinforce. Now I'm going to do this around stitch again on this side. So that's me going around. Pull both really tight. Okay, at this point I'm going to cut and back burn. Should I use the lighter or the match? What do you think? I'm going to go lighter. That's the stitching on the front. I tried to pull everything as tight as I could. That's the pocket. The pocket is not reinforced on the bottom, so you can flip out. So next we're going to put the feet on. So it kind of came in a bag like this, where you get the rubber finger cots, which I have not used at all in any of the projects. So that's one screw-on foot. And it looks like there's feet protectors provided as well. So I find it easiest to just put the screw inside the bag. Then let the little screw come through the hole. Then match it up with the feet. Hand turn the feet on, just to anchor it, and then you can go on the inside and use the screwdriver. And I'm going to hold the foot while I turn the screwdriver. So you are doing it like a little bit blind. Now you don't want to thread your screw, so do it tight, but not too tight to the point where you're threading your screw. Okay, now so that's one foot on. Now let's pop my foot protector on there. Beautiful. Let's do the other three. 10 minutes to put all 4 feet on, and I actually have a spare set of feet. So, and the foot protector as well, so that's really good. They actually give you 5, so you have 1 spare. So I'm going to put that back in the bag. So next we're going to install this piece of hardware, which would be on the flap where the turnlock will lock in. There's 2 sides. There's this ridged side, that would be the back, or also called the back plate. And there's this smooth side which has a protective sticker, and that will be the front. So we first need to unscrew the 2 pieces, the front and the back plate, using the screwdriver they give to us. So you can see there's 2 holes there, and there's also 2 notches there, so that will line up. It doesn't actually go through the hole. And I'm going to line up the back plate. Okay, screw number 1. Let's just put that in place with a few turns. Screw number 2. Let's just put that in place with a few turns. Okay, now that they're both in place, now I'm going to tighten them all the way. I don't want to tighten them all the way until I've got them both lined up. And I'm just going to do bit by bit on both of them, so they're kind of going tight together. Sometimes if you do one side too tight, it misaligns the next side. So I like to do them together. And don't go so far that you're threading the screw. Alright. So next we're going to put the hardware on the sangles. So that's the back, that's the front. Now there's 2 ends, and you can see they have this side which is not flat, and that matches up with this part of the sangle which is also not flat. Now I think you just push this through. You literally just push it through, and then it goes through and locks itself in. Repeat on the other side. This does hurt my thumb a little bit. Alright, take a closer look. So now the sangle hardware is on. That top hardware is on. Okay, so let's dress the bag up. Let's take off the protective stickers. Nice. Oh, even the middle part has a protective sticker. Let's take it off the sangles. Ooh. Okay, so let's do a try on. So this strap already came made. I didn't have to make it, thank goodness. And it is an adjustable and removable strap. Okay, so this is what the bag looks like crossbody. This is what the bag looks like on one shoulder. And this is what the bag looks like handheld. So guys, tell me, what do you think of my final product, my Kelly 25 and my DIY leather Picatinny? So the two leathers feel really different. So the style that I chose for this DIY kit was actually the Kelly Togo in the 25 centimeter in the medium. Now this is feeling a lot stiffer than what I was expecting. I thought I was going to get like a softer, more veiny sort of Togo, but I've never touched Hermes Togo before, so maybe my expectation of what the Togo was going to feel like was wrong. Let me know if you've felt the real Hermes Togo and if it's soft or not, and let me know if you've also felt the Babylon Togo and how it compares. So guys, if you haven't already seen my sewing vlog on how I made this DIY Picatinny, it's so small, it's only 8 centimeters. I'll leave that video here. And if you haven't seen my latest unboxing of my 2 handbags, I'm going to leave that here. And if you want to see everything I've bought so far in 2025, including all my fashion, accessories, handbags, blah, blah, I'm going to leave that here.